True story that began in the community of Caney Creek, Kentucky in 1916.
You're strange calm about it, ma'am.
You Kentucky mountain men don't miss with a rifle. Not unless you want to miss.
Well, 'twarn't me on the rifle. I was climbing the path.
I know it wasn't you, Dr. Matthew. But who was it?
Some folks don't take to learning from outsiders. We had a meeting tonight and lots of loud talk. So I figured I'd as well get here fast.
Thank you. But I'm not afraid of you Caney people.
Not only Caney, there's lots of other hollows where folks don't take to strangers. See, there's Beaver Creek, Holly Bush, Jones Fork, Lots Creek where Zeke Wells lives.
Won't you sit down? Who is Zeke Wells?
Oh, he's the ringleader. He's down on education more than anybody else in these parts. He thinks all schooling is wasted, especially on girls, after what happened to his own girl, Lorna.
What happened to Lorna?
Zeke thought all a girl had to know was housekeeping. But Lorna had such a yearning that she used to run away to the old school.
And then?
One day the teacher gave her a magazine to practice reading. But Zeke found it and tore it up. But she'd seen all the pictures and she'd read enough about the fine ladies that she got to dreaming and yearning until she couldn't stand it. She just disappeared.
But why should the people here be influenced by Zeke Wells?
The folks here about hold Lorna mighty dear.
I see. Dr. Matthew, what was decided at that meeting tonight?
Some folks thought I ought to hear what you have to say. We all know you came down here from Boston and want to start a school in Caney Creek. But why Caney Creek?
Because there's more shocking need for schooling here than any place I've ever seen. Dr. Matthew, where did you get your medical training? At what college?
Well, ma'am, I'm not exactly a college doctor. Sort of a drugstore doctor. I ran away when I was a boy, worked in Hazard, bought books on medicine.
Exactly. What chance did you have? What chance do any of these mountain children have?
I grant there's a need, ma'am.
Listen, I'm writing to a friend. The leaders are here. They must be found and given the chance. Doctors and lawyers and engineers, they're here in these starved hills. I'm asking her for money, for clothes, for any help she can send.
It's not only that, there are other things.
All I'm asking is a chance to prove what I can do for you, not for myself.
Not for yourself?
Oh, very well. You're a doctor. You can see that my health is frail, that I am partially paralyzed. The Boston doctors told me that I must find a milder climate or I'd be dead in 6 months. So I hitched up my buggy and I drove south. But I have a much better reason for staying. A much, much better reason now to keep on living.
You mean our children?
Dr. Matthew, if your children could go to the finest schools and colleges in the land, don't you realize what that would mean to Caney Creek? Bringing back modern medicine and law and engineering with them?
Mrs. Lloyd, you're not even a teacher, are you? A true teacher?
No. No, I'm not. I went to Radcliffe College and then I worked for a Boston newspaper. But I have enough faith to believe that I can make myself into a real teacher. In the same way that you made yourself into a real doctor.
Caney Creek folks don't take much to strangers, Miss Lloyd. But they're proud and they're decent. So Bryce Johnson says he'll give you a bit of land. Commodore Sloan, Mr. Hall, and I, well, we'll build you some kind of a schoolhouse. Bye. I told you I'd bring you one the first day, and here he is, Denzil Barker.
Hello, Denzil. It's nice to have you.
Howdy, ma'am. This here is Madame Pasteur. She's old and too tough to eat, but she's still a good setting hen. She's for you.
Why, thank you, Denzil. I'm very proud to have her. And that reminds me, there's a box on the table in the schoolroom with something in it for you.
I guess Madame Pasteur is about the most valuable thing Dan Sloan. He's a good boy. He's quick. He'll make a good doctor someday. Well, what do you know?
Who is it?
That's Clay Dodgett and his boy Tip. He's right from Zeke's own holler. See, the Dodgetts live up creek and the Wells is down creek. Howdy, Clay.
Howdy, Doc.
You know Mrs. Lloyd here? This is Clay Dodgett and his boy Tip.
Mr. Dodgett?
Howdy, ma'am.
Hello, Tip. Are you coming to school?
This tip will do you no trouble, ma'am, if and you'll be in a mind to take him.
Of course I'll take him.
I brought you some potatoes you might could use.
That's very kind of you, Mr. Dodgett.
Let me take care of Madame Pasteur.
Doc,
Goodbye, Clay.
Tip, there's something in the schoolroom that I think you'd like. Denzel Barker's in there. Why don't you ask him to show you where it is, What is it, Doctor?
You know, Clay Dodgett and Zeke Wells never could agree on how to run their own school. Now, with Clay bringing his boy here, Zeke will be more set than ever against your school.
We'll manage.
I think you will.
I'll say them again. This is A. This is B. This is C.
Mrs. Lloyd, ma'am.
Oh, yes, Mrs. Sloan.
This here young'un, my Alice, been begging me to go to school. I brung her here to hear you say she ain't old enough.
How old is Alice, Mrs. Sloan?
6, just 6. But to hear you think she'll be 16. If and you could take her, ma'am, 'twould bless her and me both for sure.
Well, I think 6 years old is a very good age to go to school. Don't you, Alice? Now, Mrs. Sloan, if you'll take a seat for a few minutes, we're almost through.
Alice.
I'm very proud to have a girl student, too. Tip Dodgett, Denzel Barker, Alice Sloan, and Dan Martin will be here, too. The future leaders of your people. Someday they'll be as proud of you as I am at this moment, if that's possible. Oh, Mrs. Sloan.
Zeke Wells be asking to see you, ma'am.
Invite Mr. Wells in, please, Mrs. Sloan.
Ain't he coming in?
Very well. Ask him to wait, please, until we've finished. It won't be long.
I reckon I ain't waiting, stranger. I come up to be here just this once. The way I feel.
Tip Dodgett came from your hollow to attend school. School will be finished in a moment.
Already. The first day. Already you're reaching out into my holler. Like they done to my little Lorna. But you ain't gonna do it. I warn you.
If you wish to speak to me, Mr. Wells, please wait. If not, please leave. Now, I'll finish this class without interruption.
If you even touch one of my children.
Sit down or please leave. Now, children, we shall conclude this class with a pledge that you and all students who come after you at Caney will repeat. I shall read it first. I will use my education to help my own people. When my schooling is finished, no matter where I may be, I will return and settle in the Southland Mountains and take my stand for consecrated citizenship. Now then, repeat after me. I will use my education.
I will use my education
To help my own people.
to help my own people.
I don't see it, Alice. I don't see it. With all your help, I don't.
Just keep thinking about it, Tip.
You really meant it, huh?
Meant what?
Well, remember 7 years ago when you were just about that high? And remember you said, to help my own people?
You weren't so big yourself, Tip Dodgett. Now, Bertha.
I got the answer.
Oh, Alice. Alice, your friend Clary Wells is outside. Won't she come in?
Oh, she won't dare come in, Mrs. Lloyd. She's afraid of her pa.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Lloyd.
Well, The Sloan sisters, Alice and Bertha, studying after school. Girls, what would you say education is?
Learning? Yes, and it's service, too.
And what do you mean by service, Alice?
Given education means helping others see more things clearly by itself. So education is helping others, and helping others is service.
You'll both make splendid teachers someday. Run along, girls. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, yes, here it is. One last word. You may assure the parents of whatever girl you send that she will be as welcome in my home as my daughter. Your dear friend, Anne Anthony Bacon. Mrs. Sloan, I'd like your permission to send Alice to Cleveland.
To live way off yonder?
To live with Mrs. Bacon. She's a wonderful woman. I've known her many years.
Well, ma'am, if and you think it best for my Alice.
I think it's the greatest opportunity that any mountain girl ever had. High school in Cleveland, and then a great university.
Once I started to live off yonder myself. But my ma switched me terrible. Well, now, I reckon Alice can go for the both of us.
You're sure? Come in.
Hello, Ma. Can Clary Wells come in, too, Mrs.
Certainly. Come in, Clary. Alice, I'd like you to read this. Clary, this is my office.
Dead fixed against schooling you, Clary.
Stubborn fixed against it, ma'am.
Never mind, Clary. Someday someone will build a community center where you are. Well, Alice?
Oh, that's a wonderful letter, Mrs. Lloyd. For some girl.
Alice, will you come over here and help me open this?
A stole dress.
Alice, you were Caney's first girl student. And so I think it most appropriate that you should have this first call to leave Caney for greater opportunity.
Me? You want me to leave you and Caney?
You don't have to go, dear, of course.
For 8 years? To be away from you and Ma, Clary and Bertha?
Others will follow. Denzel Barker will go away to medical school for 8 years, and Dan Martin will be 7 years away at his law.
I'll be 21. Nobody will know me. I'll be a stranger to all of you.
Come in.
Clary, you get back home.
I come over just for to tell Alice goodbye.
You come over for what?
For to tell Alice goodbye. She's been sent off to far away.
I have offered Alice the chance to go to Cleveland to high school and college. But if she goes, she'll come back.
She ain't never coming back.
Every child at Caney has promised to come home.
Here. How many you had to come back?
I haven't sent any out yet. But Alice Sloan or someone will go today.
School ain't fitting for girls. Chokes them all up with a restless fever. Like it done with my little Lorna. Now, Alice Sloan. It's just like as though she was dead.
Mr. Wells.
Leander Sloan, I warned you clear. You said I'd be a fool. Alice can go to school, you said. Well, look last on your Alice, Leander Sloan. Who'll be a fool now? A school and a stranger kills your young and dead.
You get out.
Stay clear. Just stay clear of us'ns.
Suffering, mistaken man. You won't have to go, Alice. I'll get someone else.
I think I'd like to go to Cleveland, Mrs. Lloyd.
Are you sure?
Don't you remember our promise? I will use my education to help my own people, to return and settle in the Southland Mountains. You remember it. You taught it to me.
Alice, someday when I send for you, you must come home And bring me this ring.
Oh, I promise, Mrs. Lloyd.
Dr. Matthew.
Remember, I told you I'd bring you one the first day. That's exactly what I said on this same spot 17 years ago.
1933. It is 17 years ago. But then you had a small boy with you carrying a chicken.
A chicken named Madame Pasteur?
Denzel! Denzel Parker!
He just got in. He hasn't even been home yet. Had to see you.
You're home to stay.
Somebody has to keep Doc going.
Now then, you go along and see your mother,
You look wonderful.
Well, I'm feeling fine. But I'm thinking of changing my doctor.
Not a chance. See you tomorrow.
University of Kentucky, Phi Beta Kappa. If I were you, I would change my doctor.
The first one came home. Denzel Parker came home.
So will Dan Martin and all the others.
I think it's about time that Alice Sloan came back. Her sister Bertha's having an awful time keeping the Lots Creek school going. She's tried it for over a year now, but Zeke Wells has her hands tied.
But there's something you don't know.
What is it?
Alice wrote a letter to Bertha. She's met a young man in Cleveland. They've fallen in love. They're thinking of marriage.
Oh, Dr. Matthew, you have too little faith in Alice Sloan's loyalty. I'll write Alice tonight.
Alice! Tom will be here any minute, dear. You know how he feels about being late to a concert.
I can't see Tom.
Alice,
I'm sorry. I can't see him tonight.
what is it? What's the matter? Alice, we've both known this would happen.
I suppose.
It's my fault. I've been cruel to let us both pretend it wouldn't happen.
You don't understand what I mean. I can't go back.
This is your decision. I won't interfere. But one thing I know you must do. You must go back and tell her face to face.
Yes, I'll go tomorrow.
Come in. Yes?
Hello, Mrs. Lloyd. How are you?
You're Alice Sloan. After 10 years, all the way from Cleveland. Alice Sloan home at last. Come over here for a minute. I want to talk to you. Do you remember what you said to me in this very room 10 years ago?
I remember. I told you that you wouldn't recognize me.
Yes. But I did recognize you.
No, I don't think you did. I don't think you ever will again. Not after what I have to say.
I'll tell you who you are. You're Alice Sloan, 6 years old, begging to come to school. And at 12 years, defining education. Remember? You said education was service.
I'm not coming back, Mrs. Lloyd. Here's your ring. You never thought I'd say that, did you? Well, neither did I. I can't tell you how deeply I regret it. There's no one to blame but me. I haven't any excuse. Only know I must go.
Alice, you forgot something. This ring is yours, not mine. Until you come home to stay.
Goodbye, Mrs. Lloyd.
You'll want to see Bertha before you go. She's over at Lots Creek. I'm going over there this morning. We can cross the ridge together.
It's no use. I can't.
I won't ask you to stay. I'll call for you at your mother's in an hour.
new hog pen.
But the boys built it yesterday.
But a man be tearing it down today.
It's the library for the new Lots Creek High School. You can't tear it down.
Now, keep me, Berthy Sloan. I come by your school yesterday and seen you schooling girls again.
That was Millie Corby. Her pa says she can come to school.
Well, I say she can't.
She's Corby's daughter, not yours. Corby says...
I say she can't.
Bertha says she can. Bertha and I believe we should take any girl who wants to come to school.
School ain't fitting for girls.
We think it is. Bertha, don't you recognize your sister Alice?
Bertha. Alice came home. Alice came home at last.
Well, Bertha, what's all the shouting about?
You will let Alice come to Lots Creek, won't you? I need her so much here. We all need her.
Did the boys build this for your library?
Oh, please, Mrs. Lloyd. Alice could do so much better than I can. Please send her here.
Alice has made up her own mind. She has decided...
Mrs. Lloyd, please.
You be Alice Sloan? Then show me a sign.
How's Clary, Zeke?
The stranger. She give you about my Clary.
My ma's Leander Sloan. Doc Matthew lives in Caney. Kay Dodgett lives up creek from you.
You be Alice Sloan. You ain't come back. You be a stranger.
Zeke Wells, you can make up your mind to this. Bertha has done her best to start a high school in Lots Creek. And whether you like it or not, the children of Lots Creek are going to have the same chance in life the children of Caney have.
Just let her try to build one more splinter of school. Now, get on back to your own hollow. Take Berthy with you. And you, Alice Sloan or no Alice Sloan, go away, stranger. Go back where you belong.
Wait a minute, Zeke. How do you know where anyone belongs? You had a girl, Lorna, once. You thought she belonged at home, but she didn't.
School took my Lorna away.
No, Zeke, not school. You. You drove her out yourself. You know you did.
No.
Stubborn and all torn inside with grief. You had to blame the school. She'd be here now if you'd let her go to school. Every single one of us has to make a solemn promise to come back, and no one in these mountains would break a solemn promise.
We uns always keep our promises. Less'n we grow into strangers like you.
I came back, Zeke. I'm back. And Denzel Barker is back. For goodness sakes, what more proof do you need? Now stop trying to tell people where they belong. Look at what you've done. Come on, we'll put those shelves back. I'll help you.
All right. You kept your promise.
Beginning. Good luck, Alice.
And so the work went on. It had to, because there was a need, a hunger for learning. And today, teachers are coming to the children of those Kentucky hills. Teachers who have received their own education in modern classrooms at Caney Creek and Lots Creek, where Alice Lloyd and Alice Sloan live and carry on their great work.